Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and record this session in case the other people need to watch this. And there's just a few things I want to cover in housekeeping. Um, with just one or two people on the call, we're not going to worry too much about. May not have to mute too much, and anything that goes down with the computer, just relog back in to the same GoToMeeting notice. And then in a second, maybe you can tell me just a little bit about your goals and a little bit about yourself. So, I'll have flexibility to customize this a little bit more today. And hopefully you got the information on the members only website. So,
I did. I logged into that earlier.
okay, good. And then also if you miss anything or need to review anything, also there's a link on that same website for previously recorded sessions. And
Okay.
also online IDS account. IDS stands for Internet Delivery System, and it's for those people who want to use our assessments down the road. And we'll cover a little bit more about that on the last class. And then everybody's always excited about the disc exam, right? So
Oh yeah.
let me go back to this one. There is an open book exam that I sent out on the last class that you have 30 days to get completed and back to me. And um, and again, it's not a pass or fail exam. It's just mainly a review of the material. And as long as you complete the exam, then you'll get your certification. Does that sound like a deal?
Yes, that sounds fair enough.
Okay. All right. Well, just a little bit about me. I don't know. Where did you hear about Chart Your Course International?
um, I think we probably stumbled upon you on the internet.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully was a good thing when you stumbled across me. The the um, you know,
I had a previous employee actually go through one of your classes.
oh, okay. Um, is that you, Miriam?
Yes.
Oh, good. Glad you could join us. I
Yeah,
was.
I can't see the I can't get the computer work, but I got the phone to work.
Uh-oh. Hmm.
So I'm still working on the computer piece.
Yeah, well, hopefully that'll come up here shortly. But also, as I was telling, is it Tara? Did I say that?
Tara.
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 Okay. Um, that there's a recording of all these sessions on the website in case you want to look at my picture some more. And and, uh, and I have to sort of uh, start down here. Sarcasm is my gift to the world kind. I like to joke around, and so if it sounds like an insult, it's just a bad joke. So don't take personal offense anything. Because webinars can be kind of dry and boring, and I don't like to be dry and boring, even though there is a lot of information we're going to cover. So anyway, I just like to joke around. Anyway, um, it keeps me from going crazy. Plus, it's a personality defect that you'll learn about me. Just a little bit about my background, and then I'll have uh, uh, um, Tara and Miriam introduce yourself. But anyway, I've been doing this for quite a long time. I used to work for the Army Medical Department, and I was a Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award examiner. And I live, breathe, and eat DISC and understanding human behavior, because it all goes back to in order to make us successful, in order to hire the right people, we have to understand human behavior. And we just in June, my whole family, we had a vacation down at the beach at Nag's Head, and everybody took their DISC report and we had a class, at the house we rented on disc. And a lot of them have been doing it. My daughters have used disc assessments on their fiancés before they married them to find compatibility. So this is something, it isn't just a hobby. It isn't just something we do part-time. Is everything involves disc, whether you're training, hiring, retaining, motivating. Disc is a valuable part of your toolkit, and each of you have obviously different objectives. So, just a little bit about my company. For those of you who don't know anything about Chart Your Course, and Miriam, I'm glad one of your employees had gone through our training, is basically we're a talent management company, and we do training programs, we do consulting, and we provide assessments to lots and lots of people across the United States. In fact, the company that has the intellectual property for our DISC reports does about 3,000 reports a day. So how would you like to have to go through all those? So that's sort of just about me and Chart Your Course International. And so let's learn a little bit about yourselves. So it's just the two of us today. So why don't I'll let Tara, you go ahead and sort of tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll become good buddies for the rest of our life.
Great, that's good. I need more friends. My name is Tara McCall, and I'm in Bristol, Tennessee. I am the Director of Management Services for Bristol, Tennessee Essential Services. We're an electric utility that also provides cable phone and internet. And the goals we have in the past, we have used the DISC for many number of years, but in the past we have had a licensed psychologist who would come and go over the DISC and the Myers-Briggs and a few other Wonderlic and a few other teamwork assessments with our employees after they completed them. And I think he is no longer available to do that, and we want to have some better expertise and understanding of the DISC so that we can better communicate and understand our employees.
Yes, so now you're the licensed psychologist for the company, huh?
I am. They're in trouble now.
Yeah, and that and is an excellent tool. Do you plan on using these just for internal development or hiring or what?
We use them for a lot of things. We use them as a hiring tool, not necessarily for decision making, but for a tool. We also have them available, everybody in the company, their DISC profiles available for everybody else in the company to see, review, discuss, whatever. And we have recently completed 2 organizational behavior classes that we did with our employees, and we used the DISC in just about every class to get to know each other better and understand each other better.
Okay, great. All right, how about Miriam? How about you?
Yep, I'm Miriam Blair, and I'm out of Omaha, Nebraska, and I work at Goodwill Industries, and we have 660 employees, and I'm the Training and Development Coordinator. I've had that title since March of this year. Everyone here at our organization, we do the DISC. We did not use it to hire. We use it shortly after the offer is made. Everyone gets a DISC assessment, but I don't believe that we're using it for much. Basically, it goes in your file, and if there is a quarrel between maybe you and your supervisor, then we'll pull out the 2 discs and kind of go through them. So I'd like to be a little more proactive, since I believe that we use them as reactive. And the trainer before me did go through your class. She's moved on to another nonprofit, so I basically just took the information that she had and scheduled the training.
Well, great. So both of you are already using some sort of DISC tool, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
We are.
So, our reports may be a little bit different, so, just bear with me on that. Here's the way the class is going to work. There are 4 sessions. They're somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes. I'm experimenting, cutting it back down to 60 minutes, but I just want to make sure I cover every minute, all the information. And the today is going to be sort of the basic overview, and then the second and third classes probably get a little bit more intense, because that's when you start doing graphing and understanding graphing. I'm going to do most of the talking today, but on classes 2 and 3, I'm going to have you do a little more talking, and hopefully that didn't make you uncomfortable, because everybody's afraid, oh, I might sound dumb, I might get the question wrong. Well, that's the best way to learn, and we don't want you to feel bad about that. I'm not going to humiliate you if you get the wrong answer, so just feel free to speak out. And then the fourth class is explain how do we do a workshop. We're going to talk about the second and third reports you did and the exam. So that's sort of the outline. And this is sort of thing is the primary things I want you to get out of today's class. There's going to be a slight pop test at the end of the day. A real easy one is the 4 P's and the 4 C's. And that is really the important stuff, understanding the 4 P's, 4 C's. We're going to talk about the characteristics of some famous personalities. And again, at the end of the class, we'll have a little quiz. I'm going to put 4 case studies, and you're going to tell me, is this a D, I, S, or C, or a combination thereof? So that's what we're going to accomplish today. Any questions before we get started? I'm going to swap screens here for a second and go back to swapping screens. So bear with me here for a second. I'll get this one to work a little bit better. Tell me when you can see my screen again.
I can see it.
All right, good. All right, so it's good. How many of you have read the book From Good to Great? And Jim Collins says, people are not your most important asset, the right people are. And
we've read that book.
I wish, his book's been on the top 10 bestseller list for years and years. I wish my books were so successful as his. So I'm a little bit jealous. So here's the, thing is the key element is, you probably both of you know, is, there's lots of people out there for jobs or in positions. And if you get them in the right seats and you get everybody moving in the right direction, then you have a pretty productive organization. I have clients who are still trying to figure out where the bus is in the parking lot. And you have to understand a little bit about me. I started off in the military as an officer training medics a long time ago. And you're going to learn about my style. I'm pretty direct and very task focused. And what motivates me is accomplishing goals, writing a new book or helping a client achieve a goal or solving a problem. And I used to think if people weren't like me, they were defective. Now, that's kind of crazy mentality, isn't it? And that was before I understood DISC and realized that there are 4 different behavioral styles. And then when you use the DISC wheel, there's 8 sub-behavioral styles under the D, I, S, and C. And understanding that, then we become a better leader, a better individual. Our emotional intelligence is enhanced, and then we're better able to communicate with folks. Now, all of you already use assessments, so I'll just go over this quickly, but there's a lot of different reasons people use our reports. I would say 20-30%, and don't add my numbers up because they won't add up, use it for selection as part of their hiring process. And then they use it furthermore to place the right people in those right seats and ensure we have people rowing in the right direction. And then many of you use it for developing and coaching. is, can you sit down with a DISC report right now, whether it's, whatever tool you're using, and be able to coach a person on it to help them become a better leader, a better communicator. So that's the thing that we're going to talk about a lot during these questions. And then the majority of people use it just for teamwork, building communication, helping people understand everybody's unique strengths and limitations. And then there's many of the coaches out there who use it for conflict resolution. So that's why people, use these reports. Now, quick review, you read about it in chapter 1, or maybe it was 2. The guy you need to remember is William Mouton Marston, and he's known as the grandfather of DISC. And all the reports out there in the world, there's probably, 50 varieties of DISC reports out there. Some are good, some are bad, some are valid, some are not. But all the basic research came from this guy. He had all his degrees from Harvard University. And however, the thing he's most well known for, he created Wonder Woman. And I don't know why, have a guy who has a law degree and a PhD in psychology, he jumps to comic books. But somewhere in the late 30s and 40s, he began doing this. And that's probably why he made all his money, because being a psychologist, you don't make a whole lot of money. And so he's also known for, inventing the lie detector test, measuring systolic pressure, on how people's physiology changes when they're lying. So that is about him. The other guy you need to know about is, Bill Bonstetter. He's the current living grandfather of, the TTI company that creates all the intellectual property with the DISC reports that you took from us. And like I said, there are many different reports out there. They all are a little bit different, but I can tell you with absolute certainty our reports are the most valid and reliable in the market today. And that is I'm a little bit biased. And the other thing is you took three different reports. You took the DISC report, you took the motivators report, which shows what motivates an individual, and then you took what we call the DNA report, which you rank ordered based on the questions we gave you, your development needs or lack of development needs on 23 different core competencies. So these reports, we're not certifying you on these two other reports, but there's just something we want you to be familiar with that's available to you if you need more reports down the road. And when you're using this for hiring, what we call predictability is, you get an additional 92% more reliability or predictability that you're hiring the right person when you use all three reports. So many companies use these, what we call the trimetrics, these three reports for senior level or managers to ensure within almost absolute certainty they're getting the right person for the right job. All right, any questions before we move on and talk about the 4 C's and 4 P's?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so let's talk about, someone tell me, or if you don't know, I'll tell you, why do we have these 4 colors, red, yellow, blue, green? Anybody want to guess?
So DISC.
Whoa. Anybody want to say something? Well, let me share with you. Is the red, what does D stand for? Dominance. Dominant people, high D's, task oriented. And red is because there's the third element you need to capture today is what are the emotions of each of the 4 behavior factors. Now I'm going to use words like factors and temperaments, D's a factor, D's a temperament. And it's red because of the emotion is anger. The higher the D, the more likely they're going to be much more aggressive. And if they're ever threatened or under attack, if they're a pure high D, you will see that flush of anger. And if you're like me, you're fair skin, and if I get mad, then I turn red. So just remember, D for dominance, red for anger. I is enthusiasm. I for influence, or your contacts, your people, how you relate to people. And I is sort of an optimistic, enthusiastic color. And so the emotion of the I is enthusiasm. I for influence. And then we have S, which stands for steadiness, your pace. And it's green because the larger, several reasons, there's a larger population of S's than there are with anything else, 39, 40%. And S for steadiness is sort of like, green and go, and it's like green tree roots, that are firmly planted in the soil, because the S people are usually the ones, the high S's, that get all the work done. They're the sort of the steady, consistent people. That is, if you're a high S, not if you're a low S. And then blue, C for compliance to rules and procedures. Oh, and I didn't say what the emotion, and we'll come back to it. The emotion of this S people is non-emotion, because they're hard to read. They don't express their feelings and emotions as easily as the DI folks of the world down here below. So the C, compliance to rules and procedures. And C is sort of like the ocean. It's blue, it's ocean, it's deep, it's thoughtful, it's consistent. And sometimes high C people tend to appear kind of blue or standoffish or cold, because they're the energy, the emotion in their mind is in their mind, versus the D's and I's is sometimes expressed with their outward extroversion. And the emotion of the C is fear. And we'll talk more about that here in a few seconds. So let's talk about this report. We'll dive into very important things you want to remember. Write this down. Is the behavior report. And our report is more like disc on steroids. That is how a person behaves. Now, here's a true-false question. Both, speak up on this. Is DISC a personality test?
False.
I hear false.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. And it's right in the chapter 1. It's how a person behaves. It is a behavior assessment. A DISC report, or your personality, is far more complicated than just what a DISC report reveals, because your personality is based on many things: your birth order, whether you're the first or the last, or your upbringing. And this talks about how a person behaves. And our report, which may be different than what you're using, measures 384 different behavior patterns. And versus like Myers-Briggs only measures 16 behavior patterns. So here's some key points that you have to keep in mind. Is your low scores are just as important as your high scores. Most assessments only look at your high scores, your D, I, S, or C. Well, that's only half the information. Your low scores, like this print has a low DI, is just as significant as your high scores. We don't want to make people feel good or bad, or we call it a neutral language. being a high D or a high C doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. No style is better. It's completely neutral. And we need all 4 styles for a team to be successful. And our reports are validated in over 25 different countries. So those are the key things about, the reports you took as part of the training. So anyway, let's sort of move forward here and talk about what behavioral style is how we interact our temperament with the people around us. It's how we express our internal emotions through our external behavior. High D expresses their internal emotions through solving problems. A high I expresses their internal behavior by relationships with people and being outgoing and optimistic and enthusiastic. An S expresses their problems in holding the team together. They're not vocal, they may not be verbal, but they're still people oriented. The C's solve the problems, express their temperament through by analyzing and improving things, or if they're a low C, breaking rules and challenging status quo. So that's what we're talking about, is internal emotions expressed through our external behaviors. And that's why I'm always fascinated. I watch people. I go to the airport. I go to the subway in New York. I'm always watching people, how they relate. I don't even need to read the report. I can tell if they're a D, I, S, or C just based on their body language, their tone of voice, how they interact with folks. And that is what the report is all about. So let's cover, again, the 4 Ps, 4 Cs. Dominance, how they address problems and challenges. You motivate a D because you give them a challenge to achieve. Otherwise, high D could be appeared as a wallflower in a social environment till you give them a challenge. Now, I don't like to get too political because, you always offend somebody with politics, but I talk about politicians. Now, let me ask you, what do you think Donald Trump is?
He's a D.
It's not hard to figure out, is it?
No.
So, yeah, we'll talk about that style. Donald Trump is what we call a core behavioral style, meaning he only has one color above the energy line, and you see it all the time. All right, I is how do we interact and influence people and contacts. People and contacts, steadiness, pace, and consistency. C, procedures and constraints. So those are the 4 Ps. Those are the four Cs. Now let's talk about the emotions. And here I'm violating my rule, or violating what the textbook says, is we shouldn't label or stereotype people like I'm doing with Donald Trump. That's sort of like a no-no, but however, he's a perfect example. I'm not saying I like him or dislike him. I just know what his behavior's like. So do you ever see Donald Trump getting angry?
All the time.
Yeah. Versus a low D is someone who's going to be much more passive and maybe wait for someone else to take charge. The high I is optimistic, is enthusiasm, versus a low I can be a pessimist. Woe is me, this is a bad day, all these people are trying to rip me off, they're dishonest, versus a high I, they love everybody. I mean, they want to give everybody, a handshake, a hug, and they see the best in people, and they're more sensitive to emotions and feelings and the temperaments, versus a low I is like, leave me alone, I'm just going to do my job. Now, I'm exaggerating somewhat. High S doesn't show emotions. That doesn't mean they're not stressed out. That just means they their internal thermometer is just a little bit harder to read. Versus a low S, look out, they're like a rocket. And that's where it's sort of antithetical, is understanding the S graph. And now you all go back and look at your S graph. It's sort of almost reversed. The higher the S, the lower the energy, lower the emotionalism. The lower S is the opposite. They are very emotional, high energy, many people, many times. And when you look at a combination of someone like Donald Trump, who's both a high D and a low S, most likely, then you have the proverbial, bull in the china shop behavioral style. High C is fear, following the rules, getting permission, following policy and procedures, following the guidelines. Low C is, forgive, proceed till apprehended, so to speak. And that's not a negative. That just means this person is much more innovative, creative sometimes, or temperamental sometimes, versus the high C, who is following the rules and ensuring that nothing is violated. And conflict occurs between more with the DC people, because they're quick to anger, slow to anger, follow the rules, break the rules. And I'm not saying all Ds break the rules, but they can be challenging somewhat. All right, so let's look at some famous personalities here. Again, I'm breaking the rules because I am stereotyping people, but it's easy to do that when you first get involved with DISC, and you can use these when you're doing a workshop. Who recognizes these people?
Yep, I do.
Pardon me?
Yes, I recognize them.
All right. Well, one of the tests is tell me who this guy is. So we have the 4 Ps, and again, these are what we call core behavioral styles. Most of these people, and again, their characters or their acting personalities are what we call, core styles, one color above the energy line. So let me just sort of, put another graphic up here. Again, the Ds, active in solving problems. Low Ds prefers, a more calculated, thoughtful approach. Is tends to seek out people, verbally persuasive. Low Is, again, more reserved, careful, sometimes pessimistic. Tom Hanks, when his role as Captain Phillips in the movie, as a highest person, wants a stable, predictable, not overly emotional, following the rules, following the procedures, and then, his whole life gets changed when these pirates hijack his ship. Low S, fast pace, unstructured. High C, follow the rules. Low C, who needs rules? So those are some of the big characteristics of the 4 temperaments, the 4 behavioral styles. Now, I would recommend, and I'm going to sort of cover some of the other characteristics here in more detail, and then we're going to ask some questions. But I think one of the handouts, hopefully it was on the website or on your CD or on page 10 of your report, your DISC report, has these behavioral characteristics. And if you had a photographic memory, it'd be great if you can just memorize this, because this is the let me get my pen here. This is what we call the energy line, the 50% line. And these are the behavioral characteristics on being above the line or below the line. And just what I want you to do throughout the next course is feel free to look at this, and if you have page 10 or you have that handout, keep it right in front of you. This is also in the textbook, in chapter 5. But for example, high D is going to be some of these behavioral characteristics. A low I is going to have these characteristics. And low S, hypertensive. And high S is, you're going to see these behavioral characteristics, and on and on. All right, so before we start talking about the four characteristics, or the characteristics of the four behavioral styles, any questions so far?
I don't have
No,
any.
I think I'm with you.
Oh, great. All right, so let's talk about some famous personalities in more detail. Anybody remember this guy? What's his name? A Few Good Men.
Nathan Jessup.
Oh, thank you. You can read my slide. You're very good.
I know that movie. I know that one.
Oh, did you? And when we talk about high D's, Hillary Clinton, she tries to appear as a high I, but anytime she's under, she just has those high D tendencies versus, Bill Clinton, who's a high I. Rosie O'Donnell, Nathan Jessup from A Few Good Men. And the interesting about, sometimes with D's, including myself, is when they put Nathan Jessup on the trial and Tom Hanks is just banging away with questions. Did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you? And he just comes back and says, you can't handle the truth. And that's sometimes what high D's might do, depending on what their I score is. So that's sort of some exaggerated behavioral, exaggerated famous personalities of the D's. One of my favorite books I read was, from the shipwreck, Ernest Shackleton, when his boat is just, stuck in the ice. And this was his want ad when he first was looking for employees to go on this journey. So the question is, safe return, doubtful. I want to know, how many of you think there were a lot of high D's on that journey? Because this is what motivates a lot of D's. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity to do things that, other people don't do. So here's some characteristics, and you're going to see this again. This is right out of the textbook. And the important factors to understand about some D's is, well, we talked about the emotion, their strengths. They're good visionary people. They see the strategic, they see the vision of the organization. Sometimes they're not very good with small details. And the D's like to control, direct, and they like to win. Now the interesting thing is, they don't necessarily, they may compete with other people, because when you put a very high D in a team, sometimes they don't like to play ball with people because they hate wasting their time. But most of them compete with themselves. They hold themselves up, and they start and initiate a lot of things, but sometimes they don't ever finish it. Now, this is a good friend of mine. He's an attorney, and you look at his office walls. What do you see? He has every diploma, everything from Boy Scouts, and we're both Eagle Scouts, and we're both in Rotary, we both are in the military, and we're probably very similar in a lot of things, but he has everything on his wall because it makes him feel successful, because high D's compete with achieving and solving tasks and going to the next level. And many times, when you hear them speak, they talk about winning and being bored in meetings, and let's get this done and let's move on. And again, great starters sometimes not good finishers, and they just want everything, pointed to the bottom line. Anybody know anybody like that? So the here's the eyes is Bill Clinton, of course. People, he's probably the most popular ex-president we've ever had in this country. I was in New Zealand doing a workshop, and this was many years ago when he was just left the presidency, and everybody was, in New Zealand just were amazed with the Clintons, and they say, well, why did you reelect them for the third time? Oh gosh, no. But anyway, the high eye people, outgoing, friendly. They never have never meet a stranger. Everybody's a friend, and they have great strengths. Now, I'm just going to sort of give you a quick thing. If you have your textbook, we're going to jump ahead to chapter 4 and just let you know where all this information is in case you're bored late at night and you need to read something in the textbook. But look at just 74, page 74 talks about the high I, and there's a yellow box on page 74. It talks about being enthusiastic, trusting, charming, popular, all great descriptors that we'd all like to have. And then let's talk about the characteristics, because when you go to the exam, you're going to see graphs. You're not going to see photographs of people. You're going to see graphs, and the D is this way, the I is that way. And when you're describing these graphs, you need to give me, the characteristics represented by that person's temperament. And one thing about the eyes that sometimes gets them in trouble on page 77, as well as here, is they have this need to be liked. And many times they have this need, like to be popular and to be liked. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. While the D's, they don't care about anybody's feelings, right? But the I's is they have this need to be liked. And sometimes they're not very good disciplinarians and holding people's feet to the fire, but they're a whole lot of, fun to be around. So they have to interact. It's like if you hire a high I and say you put them in a cubicle by themselves, they're going to have to get out and talk to people. And, so that's just, something to keep in mind. And again, page 80, 81 is sort of a more exploded version of what you see on this slide. Optimistic, and again, the fear, the opposite, not being liked. And if you're also as a high I, sometimes you can be, depending on your S score, a little bit disorganized. So anyway, that's the I people that we were talking about. Let's talk about the S's. S is steady, consistent. The focus is pace and activity. And it's about S's is that they have this need to serve other people, and they want to work for a leader and a cause, and their S's are people-oriented people, if they're high S's, that is. However, they don't like change. They want to have the status quo. They want to make sure everything's done right. They're thorough. They like everything in writing. Now, I can say this because, my wife isn't here right now, and my wife runs my business, and she is 100% SC. And you sort of know what I am, right? Someone take a guess. What do you think I am? Or what combination am I?
A DI.
Miriam, you're a brilliant analyzer. What do you think my S score is?
Probably fairly low.
Oh boy, you already passed the exam. All right, no. So eh, yeah, you're right. I'm a DI. I'm a low S, and my C is like 50%. So I know where the rules are, and I know when to break them, and I know when to follow the rules. But yeah, I'm a D over I. I'm a higher D than I am an I. And I'm married, Kathy. We met in college. It was love at first sight, and we're polar opposites. She's 100% SC, and I'm over there on the left of the graph. And she's all about following the rules. She's an accountant too, and she's all about details and following the rules and doing things right, and don't ever offend anybody, and never stand in front of anybody and be public. And I'm totally opposite. So as a marriage, as a partnership, we're very well balanced, but we have conflict because we're very different to each other. And the S's and the C's are sort of like this. Cameron, this guy, we used to take Boy Scouts on sailing trips from Miami to the Bahamas and back, and Cameron was the first mate. He's a high S. The thing about, and I'm telling you the story because this is going to be part of the test here, is high S's are non-emotional. They don't get excited and verbal and assertive like D's or DI people do. And people like that because, well, you don't want your leader to be yelling and screaming like Donald Trump. And Cameron had this personality that's just, easy, steady, and everybody looked up to that. So we made him first mate. Now, the other thing you need to remember is sometimes if you're a high D, or you could perceive those SCs as just timid, and like I said, I used to think if they weren't like me, they were defective. And if you do that, and here's a point when you're debriefing people on your reports or doing a workshop, you have to teach those DIs how to communicate with the SCs, or they're just going to run over the top of them or take advantage of them. And then you're leaving all that talent that a SC brings, on the table, because they're not going to challenge you. So, they hate conflict. They want to follow the rules. And the one thing is they're super high family oriented. Doesn't mean a D, I, and C don't like family, but their high S's are just much more dedicated to their family in a smaller group of people versus the high I's. It's everybody. So everybody, you got that? And it's right, they're the glue that holds it together. I couldn't survive without my wife, um, you know, who's so good at handling all the details, and maybe you all talk to her um, when you registered for this class. So here, high C's. Anyone watch Shark Tank?
I've seen it recently.
Well, I love it because it's so bottom line, and they're very business oriented, and it's not usual fluff that you see on reality shows. But Damon John, this is him. He created Fubu, and he's one of the Shark Tank people who decides if these entrepreneurs get money or not. And he's typical high C, analytical. He is bottom line is bottom line. He will never make an investment on someone who's all about enthusiasm and happy-go-lucky. He's looking at, can I make money in that investment? And and here, I didn't ask you, who knows who this is?
Mm-hmm.
Now that's Mr. Carson. Now, obviously, you haven't watched Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And he's the head butler, and he's all about following the rules and ensuring there's no fraternization and compliance with tradition in this fictional English manner where there's royalty or aristocrats on the top floor and servants on the bottom. And he just represents the old paradigm in the early 1900s in England. And here's the one thing that many think it stands out with high C's. We talk about them being fearful. And the one thing is they will tend to back down if they're ever challenged in public in many cases, if they have a low D particular. So those are the C's. Want to improve things, follow the rules. Low C's, the opposite as we discussed. And that is tend to back down if ever challenged in public. So anyway, any questions so far?
Nope.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the ideal job culture for the 4 factors, and then we'll have our little pop quiz, and maybe we'll finish a little bit early today. And let me just say while we're on the phone is, since there's just 2 of us, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 in my classes, if you have, during this whole period that we're going through training, you have my attention. If you need to email me, ask questions, or call me if you have questions, that's certainly, my door is open to you on anything related to what we've been talking about. Now, the high D's, again, things they like is status and prestige. We talked about my buddy, the attorney who had all his diplomas. It doesn't mean all high D's are going to have status symbols in their office, but many do. They like challenges. They're good at thinking outside the box, not necessarily good at doing all the details. They tend to over-delegate to people, and competitive in change. So let's look at the I's. Good about social interactions. Poor Robin Williams, I was so devastated when he passed away. Good at communicating. People oriented. They don't like, depending how high that I score, don't like all the details. And the other thing, many with high I's, is they're really good at generating new ideas. And however, you got to have those S's and C's to complete those ideas. So those, ideal job culture for the I. Now, we also realize that most of us aren't just pure I's. We all have differences. We have some D, some I, some S, and some C. So the S's is, again, they're team oriented. They want to have a good support structure. They get frustrated if they don't have good leaders who are conscientious. They like things in writing. Who wouldn't? Want to work, they don't like conflict, want to work in a friendly environment when there's limited conflict, and they're motivated to serve other people. So someone tell me, what is the unique similarity? What do Mother Teresa and Mr. Roger have in common? Anybody know?
I have no idea.
Yes, you do. Both of them are passed away. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a bad joke. The all right. So you have to keep you all awake. So and then for the C's is, an analytical approach, love to follow rules and procedures, want to have quality control, and don't rush them because they're going to do it their own way, their own time. And also, again, they don't like change. All right, so let's sort of do a little practical question before we get to the exam or the pop quiz. If you need to place somebody in your company who is, let's say someone who's going to be a change agent to change the traditional culture to a more progressive culture, and boy, do I deal with that every month with my clients. Which of the styles or combination of the styles would you want to be on your team? A D, I, S, or C, or what combination?
And I,
An I?
as a strong I.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else you want to go with that?
Maybe
That's
some
it.
D.
Or
You
F.
think an S?
Yeah, and you'll find, and you guys are pretty on the market or on the mark is some level of D, and I'm just sort of gonna fast forward to a graph. Is you're gonna want some. You have some I, but you got to have that D. Otherwise, it's all about talking, but not about changing things. So you need some D, maybe a little bit higher, and some S. Again, the lower the S, the more energized. The higher the S, the more stable and consistent the person is. So what about you need a HR director? What do you want?
C.
C? Why?
Mhm.
Why a C?
Compliance.
Yeah, okay. Um, any, Tara, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, you want an I.
You want an I?
Yeah,
I.
Yeah, you would
I
like.
am an I, and I am an I, and I'm over HR.
Yeah, and so obviously that's a very objective answer you're giving us. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, it's like, and we'll talk on the second class. We'll throw up graphs of an HR director and a nurse and others, and talk about what's good, what's bad. All right, so here's the question: which style is the best?
None.
None.
Yeah. There's no style is better than the other. Like I said, they're just different.
I thought the DIs were the best.
Nope.
I would say that if I was biased.
If you were a what?
I'm DI.
Okay. Well, yeah, and when we're doing DISC, if we're the facilitator for our company now, then we have to be obviously very objective and not lean to one style or the other as being our favorite. I tend to hang out with DIs because DIs are like me, and
Mm-hmm.
I always have problems with S's and C's because, well, like I said, they have those characteristics that are different than mine. So here's the first pop quiz question. Who is this person?
Let's see. Are we supposed to answer?
Yes.
We're supposed to answer or write it down?
Thank you. You're awesome. Okay, so here's C. Any other?
Maybe a little S too.
You're right. Both of you are correct. There is some C and there is some S. And what I said about the high C's, they sometimes tend to give in despite their needs. Fear of loss of stability, that's an S. They tend to let others lead the way. listen and analyze. That's a SC tendency. To others, they appear quiet and introverted. So yeah, that's definitely an SC. Now, how about this one?
Definitely an I.
Yeah.
So I hear I. Why do we think? What's the giveaway?
The
They can talk
amiable.
to anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they trust easily.
Now, do you two trust easily?
I do.
Yeah.
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you sign up for my course, so I guess that must be true.
I trust you.
You never know. You may be, dealing with a crazy maniac. So yeah, team player, enthusiastic. Here's, because of their trust factor, their enthusiasm, sometimes they will make impressions or decisions without having all the facts necessary. Optimistic, unrealistic. These are all great things, right? And here's the thing is our SIs, and my D is much higher than my I, but is our personality sometimes we trump when people like likable people. I mean, that's just a fact. And DIs are more popular, and sometimes DIs get, are given a lot more slack than, say, the S's and C's or the pure high Ds like Donald Trump. So we just have to make sure we don't, violate that, and we know what our limitations are, and we compensate for those limitations. And in my young days, I would be in a job, for example, if I ever had to manage a budget or finances, I was terrible at it because I'm a very low S, lower C, and it would just drive me crazy. But as long as it was a job where I had challenges and opportunities to grow and ability to lead other people, then to me that was always very motivating. How about this person?
I think that's a C.
All right, I hear C. Miriam, what do you say?
Maybe C.
I'm going to lean towards F.
You're saying an S.
More steady.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's look at, loyalty to friends, team player. Are C's team players?
No, but S's are.
C's are team players when they're playing their games online by themselves.
Okay.
The premium on friendship is sometimes will play favoritism because they're close to their friends. Sometimes not objective. Relates to warmly groups, small groups. Agreeable, is a worrier. Now here's the thing, and this is an S. So don't feel bad. Is an S is because S's are what? What's the emotion of the S?
They're not. They're non-emotional.
They're not emotional, but they still worry. I mean, S, based on my experience, S is also can stand about stew about it. You hurt their feelings and never forget. They hold a grudge. And they do worry, but they don't physically show you that worry or that stress. You know, the D's and I's, what do? We don't have a lot of stress because we just blow it out. You know, we say what we feel sometimes and it's gone, and the S's are all holding it in. So this is an S. And remember, the family is sacred. How about C? No. How about this one? This is definitely not a C.
Right. I'd say a D.
Yeah, that was easy, right?
Right.
Highly competitive, direct and confident, always looking for a challenge, high energy level. Well, it sort of depends what the S is.
Mm-hmm.
Frustrates people because they're always, you know,
Mm-hmm.
starting stuff and not finishing it. If you'd see my desk, you'd know that because I have 40 projects sitting here. So that's thing. Now, if I ask, and if this is an exam question, if I ask you, who's the most intense style or person, what would you tell me?
D.
A C?
A D.
And that would be wrong, because remember, the 4 P's is D is all about what? Problems.
Mm-hmm.
P is for I is people. You have to
Mm-hmm.
put these P's in your mind and never forget them. And then P for pace is the intensity. When we look at the characteristics that we talked about early, this is where intensity comes from: impulsive, impetuous, hypertensive. And this is just, you know, this is a common mistake people make, and you're not going to make it on the exam because I'm talking about it, is we assume that high Ds are intense. As I said, a high D by himself or herself in a room could be a wallflower until they get challenged with a problem. This is what we have to look at. We call this the energy line. This is sort of like adrenaline. Low S scores, high adrenaline. High S is low adrenaline. So you have to look at both the D score and the S score to know about intensity or impetuousness or impulsiveness. And I'll give you lots of examples on the next class. That's important.
So low S, high D is intense.
Low S, high D is a pit bull. And however, the trump card is their I score, because they can still be a high D, a low S, and a high I, and the I is sort of like a buffer to the D. I softens the D. So now you have someone who's say a high DI with a low S. You have someone who's going to be very task oriented, but do things through people. If they have a low I score, low S score, a high D is going to do things to people, you know, versus a high I that's going to be, you know, like a preacher or a minister or an excellent communicator. Does that help?
Yep.
So yeah, that's the thing. Look, you got to look at that S score. That changes the whole behavior dynamic. And the more comfortable, or the more you look at graphs, the more comfortable you'll be. You know, you'll get comfortable doing this. Now, I'm giving you a free offer here. You know, this is like the $9.99. No, it's not. It's really like a $100 special. But wait, you get two. Is again, I know all of you use assessments already, but the special is if you want your relative or your close friends, family to take this report, which is mainly, for training, because the more reports you read, the more it helps you solidify these 4 Ps and the 4 C. If you want, I'm giving you 2 free reports, and and if you want them, just email me, and I will give you the link. You can only use this for, I would, someone close to you, not someone who's a stranger or a client. And you have 2 or 3 weeks to use these 2 free reports. If you want to do your spouse, your children, or your significant other, you get 2 free reports. If you're interested in that, just email me at greg@chartcourse and I'll send the link to you. Now for homework. Now, isn't that a great deal?
Yeah.
So, because now you'll know what your significant other is. And so I want you to make sure you the next class, you're going to do more talking. I'm going to do less talking. And we're going to focus on chapters 4 and 5, and we're going to spend most of the rest of the time on chapters 4 and 5. Don't worry about chapter 6. Don't worry too much about selling with style. And chapter 9 is important. So, and then we'll cover case study 2. We didn't cover case study 1 today, but we'll cover it on the next class. Any questions?
I wasn't able to pull down the PowerPoint,